Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson, and we're in a study of the resurrection accounts in the Old and New Testament. And we just started looking at the resurrection of Lazarus last time, an event that really is the culmination of Jesus' public ministry and by far the longest resurrection account in the Bible, Old or New Testament. And it goes in chapter 11 of John's Gospel from verse 1 all the way through verse 46. So we're going to take this in 4 sections, and we want to talk today about the preliminary events leading up to the resurrection in verses 1 through 16. We're at the end of Jesus' public ministry. He's going to be entering Jerusalem triumphantly, and then at the end of the week be crucified. And this is going to take place shortly. And we're in Bethany. And let's not forget that we said Bethany is a town that is just 2 miles from Jerusalem. It's just on the other side of the Mount of Olives from Jerusalem. In fact, on that last week when Jesus was in Jerusalem teaching in the temple, he was staying the night in Bethany, going back and forth. And of course, Mary, Martha, and Lazarus are people that, or at least Mary and Martha, are people that we've met before, people whom we've met before in Luke chapter 10, the end of Luke chapter 10, when Jesus stayed at their house. Their relationship, the part that we have in the New Testament, we know is just the tip of an iceberg, because they're already well acquainted when we meet them in Luke chapter 10, and we understand the deep relationship that has already been established between this family and Jesus as we read chapter 11, and then look ahead a bit and look at chapter 12. Let's read verses 1 through 16 today. Now a certain man was sick, Lazarus of Bethany, of the village of Mary and her sister Martha. And it was the Mary who anointed the Lord with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was sick. This hasn't happened yet in John's Gospel. It's going to be mentioned in chapter 12, but it was something that his readers at the end of the first century were well aware of. The sisters therefore sent to him, saying, Lord, behold, he whom you love is sick. But when Jesus heard it, he said, the sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God might be glorified by it. Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. When therefore he heard that he was sick, he stayed then 2 days longer at the place where he was. Then, after this, he said to his disciples, let us go to Judea again. The disciples said to him, Rabbi, the Jews were just now seeking to stone you, and you are going there again? And Jesus answered, are there not 12 hours in the day? If anyone walks in the day, he does not stumble, because he sees the light of this world. But if anyone walks in the night, he stumbles, because the light is not in him. This he said, and after that he said to them, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I go that I may wake him out of sleep. The disciples therefore said to him, Lord, if he's fallen asleep, he'll get better. Now Jesus had spoken of his death, but they thought he was talking of literal sleep. Therefore Jesus said to them plainly, Lazarus is dead, and I am glad for your sakes that I was not there, so that you may believe. Let us go to him. Then Thomas, who is called the twin, said to his fellow disciples, let us also go, that we may die with him. This initial part is necessary to the rest, and it's really amazing. It establishes the relationship between Jesus, Lazarus, Mary, and Martha. And John does this, what he does in this chapter at the very beginning. He loved them so much. It's like what he says in chapter 13 when he washes the disciples' feet. And he says he loved them. He loved them until the end. And so we have that. We start with love and a loving relationship, these 3 people. And we have their absolute faith that Jesus can make it better if he will just come. And then we have Jesus intentionally delaying coming, because this, as we said before, is stage managed. And I don't mean that in a bad way. This is all being arranged so that Jesus can demonstrate unparalleled power from God, unparalleled evidence that he himself is God, in raising Lazarus back from the dead after he's been dead 4 days. Lazarus is probably already dead when he gets the message, if you add up the days. Although we're not told how many days it took them to travel, how many days it took before Jesus said, let's go, and they left. I mean, it could have been that very minute, or it could have been the next day. But it might be that Lazarus is already dead by the time the message arrives. They're not in Judea at the time, but not far away, a day's walk, maybe a little more than that. In Judea, the Jews are seeking to kill him. And the Jews in Judea would have no sway, no power outside of Judea. And so the apostles are hesitant to go because the Jews are seeking to kill him. Well, going to die is what he's going to be doing anyway. He knows that. But the obtuseness of the disciples is also a theme. They don't get any of it. They don't even get it when Jesus says Lazarus is asleep. They can't think beyond the literal meaning or the thing in front of their faces. They can't add 2 plus 2 together and get 4. I mean, they're just not there. And Jesus says, I'm not afraid to go to Judea. I'm going to Judea. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And has to make clear to them that Lazarus is dead. And then this section ends with Thomas, whom we call Doubting Thomas. Thomas is one of these people that we only get to know through John. John, who writes at the end of the 1st century. John, who writes after the other Gospels are already decades old. John, who fills in blanks for us and who clues us in on people we need to know that we haven't been introduced to yet. Like Thomas. You know, we call him Doubting Thomas. We know him almost primarily only from John's Gospel, other than his name. And he's not. That's not fair. That's not fair at all. This is the man of the 12 who said, let's go. I'm ready to die right alongside him. Let's go. And they went. We'll pick up with verse 17 next time and talk about Jesus and his relationship with Martha. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word.